Grandfield City was a canvas of morning vitality. The sidewalks bustled with hurried steps, cups of coffee in hand, and fragments of conversation filling the air. A street musician strummed his guitar on a nearby corner, his melodies harmonizing with the urban symphony. Jamal West walked confidently amidst the flow of the city, his polished black shoes clicking with purpose against the pavement. At 34, Jamal was the embodiment of grace under pressure, a man who had seen enough injustice to break most people but had instead turned his pain into purpose. His tailored navy suit, pristine white shirt, and understated tie spoke of his professionalism, but it was the quiet fire in his eyes that truly defined him. This morning, like many others, had started with a visit to the local diner. The waitstaff greeted him warmly, knowing his usual order of scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, and fruit. As a regular, Jamal had become a fixture of the neighborhood, a face people trusted and respected. Stepping out of the diner, Jamal adjusted his cuffs and glanced at his watch. There was a sense of satisfaction in the rhythm of his day. He had meetings lined up at his law office, where he often championed cases for those who couldn't fight for themselves. But first, he had a few moments to savor the crisp morning air before heading to his car. A sleek black sedan parked neatly by the curb. As Jamal reached for his keys, a familiar yet unwelcome sensation crept over him, the heavy gaze of scrutiny. Turning, he saw two uniformed police officers walking toward him. Their expressions were unreadable, but their intent felt clear. "Excuse me, sir," one of them called out. Jamal straightened, slipping his keys back into his pocket. "Yes, officer," he responded, his tone polite but measured. The taller of the two officers, Riley, spoke first. "We need to see some ID." Jamal's instincts kicked in. This wasn't his first encounter with such a request. Growing up, his father had taught him how to navigate these moments, remain calm, be respectful, and never give them a reason to escalate. But even as he remembered those lessons, a knot tightened in his stomach. "May I ask what this is about?" Jamal asked, maintaining his composure. "You match the description of someone we're looking for," Riley said, his voice clipped. Jamal hesitated, then reached for his wallet. "All right," he said evenly, handing over his driver's license. "Here you go." Riley studied the ID for a moment before glancing back at Jamal. "What are you doing here?" "I just had breakfast," Jamal replied. "I'm heading to work." "Is there a problem?" Jenkins, the shorter officer, stepped forward. "You sure you're not hiding something? Drugs? Weapons?" Jamal's jaw tightened, but he forced himself to remain calm. "There's nothing illegal in my car, officer," he said. "You're welcome to search it if you have a warrant." That response seemed to irritate Riley, whose demeanor shifted. "Step away from the car," he ordered, his hand moving to his belt. Jamal hesitated. "I've done nothing wrong," he said firmly, though his voice remained steady. Without warning, Riley grabbed Jamal's arm, twisting it behind his back. Jenkins moved in, pulling out handcuffs. "You're under arrest for resisting arrest," Riley declared. The commotion quickly drew attention. People stopped mid-step, their curious gazes turning into expressions of disbelief and outrage. "What are you doing to him?" an elderly woman shouted from her balcony. Mrs. Agnes Carter had lived in the neighborhood for decades and knew Jamal as a kind and respectful man. A young couple walking their dog pulled out a phone, recording the scene. "This is unbelievable," the man muttered, his voice dripping with indignation. Jamal, now handcuffed and being led to the squad car, kept his head high. His mind raced with thoughts of what would come next. But he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't going to let this moment define him. "This isn't over," he said loudly, his voice carrying over the murmurs of the crowd. "This isn't over." The police station was a stark contrast to the bustling streets outside. Its cold, fluorescent-lit corridors echoed with the sounds of ringing phones, clattering keyboards, and muffled voices. Jamal was led through the main area, drawing curious glances from officers at their desks. Riley and Jenkins brought him to the booking desk, where a weary-looking officer sat behind a computer. "Name?" the booking officer asked. Not looking up. "Jamal West," Riley answered before Jamal could speak. The booking officer's fingers froze momentarily as he typed in the name. A flicker of recognition crossed his face, but he quickly masked it. "All right, take him to holding." Jamal was taken to a small, grimy cell at the back of the station. Riley removed the handcuffs roughly, shoving Jamal inside. "You might be here for a while," Jenkins sneered, his tone mocking. Jamal sat on the metal bench, taking a deep breath. He had been through worse, but the sting of injustice never lessened. He knew he needed to stay composed. His fight was far from over. Back at the front desk, Officer Stevens, a rookie barely 6 months into his role, watched the events unfold. Something about the arrest didn't sit right with him. Pulling out his phone, Stevens searched for Jamal West. Within seconds, a flood of results appeared. News articles, interviews, and profiles highlighted Jamal's work as a civil rights attorney. Stevens' heart sank as he realized the gravity of the situation. "Riley," Stevens said cautiously, approaching the senior officer. "What?" Riley snapped, annoyed. "Do you know who you just arrested?" Stevens asked, holding up his phone. Riley frowned, snatching the device. His eyes widened slightly as he read the headline, "Jamal West, the lawyer taking on police corruption nationwide." Riley's smirk faltered. "That can't be." "It is," Stevens said. "You just arrested one of the most prominent civil rights lawyers in the country." Lieutenant Kate Thompson had been reviewing reports when the news reached her desk. A seasoned officer with a reputation for fairness, Thompson wasn't one to tolerate misconduct. Calling Riley and Jenkins into her office, she didn't waste time on pleasantries. "What the hell were you thinking?" she demanded, her voice sharp. "Do you have any idea who Jamal West is?" "He matched the description," Riley muttered weakly. Thompson's eyes narrowed. "The description of what? A black man in a suit? You arrested a civil rights attorney on baseless charges. Do you realize the firestorm you've just ignited?" The station's tension reached a breaking point when a tall man in a dark suit arrived. Introducing himself as Agent Mark Williams from the Department of Justice, he wasted no time. "I'm here for Jamal West," Williams said. "Release him immediately and prepare a formal apology." Thompson nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We'll handle it," she said. "Make sure you do," Williams replied, his tone icy. "Because if this isn't resolved properly, your entire department is going to face federal scrutiny."